Earth, the moon. I had my art teacher here in the school create these, painted a styrofoam ball, mounted them on a couple of sticks. This one is an old paintbrush handle. And I use these all the time to demonstrate this system that we observe every night, right? The moon is such a beautiful object to look at with the different phases. But where did the moon really come from? And it's an interesting question because it could be considered that perhaps it was an asteroid. Maybe it had always existed orbiting around the sun, and one day perhaps the Earth and the moon came close together and the moon got caught into the Earth's gravitational well. Is that a possibility? Well, when you really think about it, the answer is actually no. The size of the moon, 3,400 kilometers in diameter, is very large compared to the size of Earth at 12,800 kilometers. This one's about a quarter of the size of this one. And so really it's too big to be caught by a planet this small. The only other planets in the solar system that have moons as big as this one are places like Jupiter and Saturn. And these are massive gas giants that are multiple times bigger than Earth. They have a gravitational attraction capable of capturing an asteroid this big, but Earth doesn't. So where did it come from? Well, we believe it's called the giant impact theory. This is something that came out of the Apollo era. Back in those days, they brought moon rock back and we analyzed it. And the geochemistry and the density of the rock of the moon seemed to very closely match the geochemistry and the density of the rock of the Earth's crust. And so 2 and 2 started to be put together. The conclusion was probably something large hit the Earth, ejected all this material up into orbit around the moon, and it coalesced to become the moon as we see it today. They've even named the object that hit the Earth. They call it Theia, T-H-E-I-A. They say Theia was about the size of Mars. This would have been some asteroid that was in its own independent orbit around the sun, and one calamitous day it struck the Earth, tilted it over to 23.5 degrees, ejected all this material up into orbit, ultimately to become the moon. And thus today we have the giant impact theory. This is something we've been talking about since the early 80s, and we believe this is the origin of the moon.